No one expected danger from humans. That belief had spread across the galaxy for years, growing stronger with every quiet decision humanity made. Humans negotiated. Humans helped. Humans avoided war whenever possible. Compared to aggressive empires and predator species, they looked harmless. The Galactic Council finally said it out loud. Humans are a peaceful species. The label was recorded, archived, and shared. Threat ratings were adjusted downward. Military oversight was removed. Humans were placed in neutral classifications, trusted with diplomacy, rescue operations, and humanitarian missions. No one asked why humans were so calm. Humans accepted the decision without a protest. They continued sending medical teams to war zones they did not start. They rebuilt refugee colonies destroyed by conflicts they had no part in. Their ships carried supplies, not weapons. Their fleets moved slowly, visibly, never hiding intent, to the galaxy. That meant safety. To humans, it meant patience. On the edge of known space, a border colony sent a distress signal that did not fit any known pattern. Communication cut out. Mid-transmission, defense grids went silent. Sensor data showed energy spikes that made no sense. Alien fleets nearby froze. They did not understand the threat. Humans were already there. A small human task group had been assigned to that sector. For evacuation support, their ships were light. Their crews were medical, logistics, coordination. No heavy weapons. No battle formations. Exactly the kind of humans the galaxy expected. When the first shockwave hit the colony, alien commanders assumed the humans would retreat. They didn't. Human ships repositioned instead, forming a loose perimeter around the failing colony. They launched drones, not to attack, but to scan. Their communications stayed quiet, short. Controlled. Alien observers were confused. The threat emerged from hyperspace, like a tear in reality itself. Not a fleet. Not a creature. Something else. Energy warped around it, bending sensors, collapsing. Shields, without contact. Alien defenses fired. Nothing happened. Panic spread instantly through command channels. Retreat orders were prepared. Evacuation protocols failed before they could be executed. The humans did not run. They closed their ships. Together, human captains spoke calmly, not to the galaxy, but to each other. No speeches, no questions. Only confirmations, checklists, short commands that meant nothing to alien ears listening in. Then something changed. Every human ship altered its configuration at once. Hull panels shifted. Energy signatures flattened, then vanished. Systems that had been passive moments before came alive quietly. Without flare or display. Alien sensors struggled to keep up. This was not a weapon activation. It was a transition. The human ships stopped broadcasting identification codes. For the first time since joining the galaxy, humans went silent. The unknown threat advanced again, collapsing another section of space around the colony. Structures folded inward. Energy drained away as if consumed. Human ships moved. Not aggressively. Precisely, they did not charge. They did not fire. They adjusted positions by small degrees, placing themselves between the threat and the remaining population. Shield harmonics changed subtly, not to resist, but to redirect. The first impact hit a human vessel. The galaxy expected destruction. Instead, the force bent. The energy dispersed across the hull, guided along paths humans had clearly prepared for something like this. The ship shook, systems strained, but it held. Alien commanders went silent. This was not peaceful behavior. This was practiced restraint. The threat reacted. Shifting pattern, increasing output. Another impact followed, stronger, faster. Human response. Adjusted instantly. Ships rotated roles. Some absorbed force. Others stabilized space-time distortion. None fired a weapon. The galaxy watched in growing fear. Humans were not improvising. They were executing something old, something rehearsed. A message finally left the human command ship. Directed only to nearby allies, it was short, clear, carried a designation no one had seen before. Emergency protocol. Active. Alien translators flagged the term as obsolete, buried deep in human archives. Unused since before first contact. No one knew what it meant, but they felt the shift immediately. Human. Movements became even calmer, even slower. As if urgency had been removed entirely. As if the situation was now under control. The unknown threat hesitated. For the first time since appearing. It did not advance. The galaxy realized something too late. Humans were not peaceful. Because they were weak, they were peaceful because they did not need to prove anything. And whatever this emergency protocol was, it was not designed to start a war. It was designed for the moment when peace failed. The galaxy did not notice the protocol activate at first. There were no flashing weapons, no sudden attacks, no explosions to mark the change. From the outside, the human ships simply became quieter, more still, as if they had accepted their fate. That illusion lasted only seconds. Every human vessel synchronized its systems without a single broadcast signal. Energy flows stabilized. Shields shifted frequency in ways alien sensors could barely register. Space around the fleet stopped behaving normally. This was not defense. This was control. Alien commanders tried to scan deeper. But their readings came back wrong. Distance calculations failed. Timestamps conflicted. The human ships appeared closer and farther away at the same time. The threat notice to it changed shape, expanding its field, increasing pressure on the space around the colony. Where it moved, reality bent inward, tearing structures apart without contact. Entire habitats collapsed into nothing. The humans did not respond with fear. They responded with timing. One ship moved forward, not fast, not aggressive, just enough to draw attention. The threat reacted instantly, focusing its distortion toward the new target. That was exactly what the humans wanted. The moment the energy locked onto the ship, the rest of the fleet adjusted. Shield harmonics aligned. Space-time anchors deployed silently, stabilizing reality in overlapping layers. The distortion weakened. Alien observers gasped as the impossible happened. That thread's influence was being redirected, not blocked, not resisted. Redirected. The forward human ship shook violently, hull plates groaning under pressure. Damage reports spiked. Internal alarms sounded. Yet the ship held its position, unmoving, absorbing stress that should have crushed it. Other human ships rotated into support roles, sharing the load. Energy flowed between them in patterns that looked more biological than mechanical. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. This was not a battle formation, it was a survival formation. The threat reacted again, escalating faster, harder, attempting to overwhelm the system before it could adapt. Space rippled violently. A second wave of distortion slammed into the fleet. Human response was immediate. They changed nothing. That terrified the observers more than any weapon. Humans trusted the system enough not to interfere. Minutes passed. The colony behind them stabilized. Structures stopped collapsing. Emergency power flickered back online. Evacuation routes reopened where moments earlier there had been nothing. Alien commanders realized the truth. Humans were not protecting the colony as an objective. They were using it as a fixed point. The threat began to stabilize. Its shape fluctuated. Its energy output spiked and dropped without pattern. It had never encountered resistance that didn't fight back. It did not understand. Restraint? Human ships tightened their formation slightly, reducing gaps, increasing overlap. The distortion compressed further, forced inward by layers of stabilized space, the threat screamed. Not in sound, but in data. Sensors across the sector spiked as reality itself rejected the pressure. The distortion collapsed inward, folding into itself in a violent implosion. Then it was gone. Silence followed. No explosion, no debris. Just empty space. Where something terrible had existed moments before, alien fleets froze. No one spoke. Human ships remained in formation for several seconds longer, systems still active, watching for secondary effects. When none came, the protocol ended as quietly as it had begun. Systems returned to passive states. Identification. Codes resumed. The humans finally opened communications. Their message was not triumphant, it was apologetic. Situation contained. Colony stabilization in progress. That was all. The galaxy reeled. Threat assessments updated automatically, then froze, unable to process the data. What humans had just done did not fit any category of force, defense, or technology known. Council members demanded answers. How did you do that? The human response was slow, measured. We didn't fight it. That answer made no sense. Another council member pressed harder. What was that protocol? The human commander hesitated not from fear, but from choice. It's something we hoped we'd never need again. Records were searched. The protocol name appeared only once in archived human history, buried under centuries of classified data. It predated humanity's first contact with alien life. Its purpose was not war. It was survival during extinction-level events. The galaxy felt a chill. Humans had built this not to fight enemies. They had built it for moments. When reality itself turned hostile, the realization spread slowly, but deeply. Humans were not peaceful because they lacked power. They were peaceful because they understood what power actually cost, and they used it only when everything else had already failed. Far from relief, fear began to spread. Because if this was just an emergency protocol, what else had humans prepared and never shown? The galaxy did not celebrate the victory. Instead, it grew quiet. Data from the incident spread through restricted channels, analyzed by minds that had spent lifetimes studying war and survival. None of them liked what they saw. The human response had been too controlled, too prepared, too calm for something that should have been unprecedented. That meant it wasn't unprecedented to humans. Galactic councils requested briefings immediately. Emergency sessions were called across multiple sectors. Every major power wanted to know the same thing. How long have humans had this capability? The answer unsettled them. Longer than anyone realized, human representatives appeared before the councils without ceremony. No guards, no weapons. Just calm figures who did not look like the owners of a terrifying secret. Their presence felt unchanged, almost reassuring. That made it worse. Alien analysts presented projections showing how the emergency protocol worked. They showed how human ships synchronized without communication, how they manipulated space without tearing it apart, how they absorbed force instead of reflecting it. None of it looked like traditional warfare. That was the problem. Weapons could be countered. Tactics could be copied. But restraint-based systems built around endurance and control did not leave obvious weaknesses. One counselor asked the question no one wanted to ask. If that was only an emergency protocol, what do you use in war? The human delegate did not answer immediately. That silence carried more weight than words. Finally, the human spoke carefully. We don't bring our worst ideas into shared space. The chamber felt colder. Humans explained their philosophy in simple terms. They described how early in their history, humanity learned that aggression escalated faster than it resolved. That total victory often meant total loss. That survival required preparation not just for enemies, but for collapse, chaos, and failure itself. They had built systems not to win wars. They had built systems to endure extinction. Alien listeners struggled with the concept. Most species developed weapons first, then defenses. Humans had done the opposite. They built layers of survival, redundancy, and restraint long before they built dominance. One analyst whispered the truth. They planned for the universe to turn against them. That was correct, the humans admitted. It openly. They spoke of ancient disasters on their homeworld. Events that nearly ended them. Moments when nature, not enemies, became the greatest threat. Humans had survived not by overpowering those forces, but by adapting faster than they broke. That mindset shaped everything. Their emergency protocols were not secrets because they were shameful. They were secrets because they were unfinished, alien. Commanders shifted uncomfortably. Unfinished. The human nodded. They are always evolving. The implications spread like a shadow. What the galaxy had just seen was not the final version. It was simply the version humans were willing to use publicly. Concern turned into fear. Military councils began re-evaluating alliances. Threat classifications were rewritten. Simulation models were updated, only to fail repeatedly. No scenario where humans chose to fight directly produced a stable outcome. Not because humans were unbeatable, but because humans would not play by predictable rules. A new realization emerged. Humans avoided war not because they were incapable. They avoided war because once it started, they did not know how to stop themselves efficiently enough to preserve what mattered. That restraint was not weakness, it was discipline. The galaxy began to see the emergency protocol differently. It was not a weapon. It was a line humans hoped would never be crossed. A final step before something far worse. One council asked quietly, "What happens if that line is crossed?" The human response was immediate. "We don't discuss that." Silence followed. Not hostile silence, respectful silence. Because everyone understood what that meant, after the incident, human ships returned to relief duties as if nothing had changed. They delivered supplies, rebuilt habitats, assisted displaced populations. They did not posture. They did not warn. But the galaxy watched them differently now. Every calm movement felt deliberate. Every peaceful gesture felt chosen, not forced. Humans were no longer seen as harmless. They were seen as contained. That frightened some species more than open aggression ever could. Because containment implies pressure, and pressure implies limits. Somewhere, Deep in the galaxy, military planners began asking forbidden questions. What if humans stopped holding back? What if the emergency protocol failed? What came after restraint? Humans never answered those questions. They didn't need to. The galaxy had seen enough to understand one thing clearly. Humans were peaceful, not because they lacked the ability to destroy. They were peaceful because they understood exactly how dangerous they could become if they didn't choose restraint. And that choice, made every day, was the most terrifying power of all. The galaxy did not sleep after the briefing. Messages moved faster than ships. Councils met behind sealed channels. Old treaties were reviewed with new suspicion. What humans had revealed without meaning to could not be unseen. The word peaceful no longer felt accurate. Military leaders across multiple systems asked the same quiet question at the same time. If humans had hidden an emergency protocol this powerful, what else had they hidden by choice? None of the answers felt safe. Border defenses were quietly reinforced, not against humans directly, but against uncertainty. Surveillance increased. Human ship movements were logged more carefully than before. Not aggressively, constantly, humans noticed. They said nothing. That silence unsettled the galaxy even more. A proposal emerged in one of the major councils, framed carefully to sound reasonable. It suggested that all species, including humans, should submit to new transparency requirements, shared defense technologies, shared emergency systems, shared limits. On the surface, it was cooperation. In truth, it was fear. Human representatives listened without interruption. They did not object. They did not argue. They asked only one question. Does this apply equally to all species? The chamber hesitated. No one answered immediately. That pause said everything. The proposal stalled. Behind closed doors, alliances began to fracture. Species that had relied on human neutrality now wondered if that neutrality could shift overnight. Others argued that humans had proven themselves responsible, restrained, and ethical. Both sides were right. That was the problem. A second incident occurred weeks later. This one was smaller. No cosmic anomaly. No reality-breaking threat. Just a regional conflict between two aggressive empires that spiraled out of control. Civilian worlds burned. Refugees fled in millions. Human relief fleets arrived as usual. They provided aid. Evacuated populations. Negotiated ceasefires where possible. They behaved exactly as they always had. But this time, everyone watched closely. When one empire violated a ceasefire and fired on a human medical convoy, the galaxy held its breath. This was not an extinction event. There was no excuse for emergency. Protocols. Human ships stopped. They did not return fire. They repositioned. The attacking fleet suddenly found its targeting systems malfunctioning. Communications dropped. Engines lost efficiency. Nothing was destroyed. Nothing exploded, but nothing worked. Within minutes, the Empire's entire strike group was drifting, powerless, unable to escalate or retreat. Human ships transmitted a single message: stand down. This conflict will not continue. The Empire complied, not because it had been defeated, because it had been contained. The galaxy panicked. This was not restraint under pressure. This was selective control. Emergency sessions were called again, louder this time. Accusations flew. Some species claimed humans were interfering in galactic sovereignty. Others argued they were preventing genocide. Humans did not deny either claim. They simply stated the truth. We act to preserve life when systems fail. The implication was, clear humans had appointed themselves as a final check on chaos. That terrified every power that thrived on it. Behind the scenes, a coalition formed quietly. Not to attack humans, but to limit them. To impose boundaries before humans decided to impose their own. Plans were drawn. Scenarios modeled. Every simulation ended the same way. If humans chose restraint, the galaxy survived. If humans were forced to abandon it, outcomes became unpredictable. That uncertainty became unbearable. A proposal was drafted in secret, a binding galactic resolution that would restrict human emergency protocols to council approval only. A leash disguised as law, it was meant to protect the galaxy. Human intelligence services learned of it. Within hours, they did not leak it. They did not threaten retaliation. They sent a request for dialogue. The meeting was scheduled. Tension spread faster than news ever could. For the first time since joining the galaxy, humans were not viewed as helpers, mediators, or observers. They were viewed as a deciding force. The question was, no longer whether humans were peaceful. The question was whether peace could survive knowing what humans were capable of, and whether the galaxy would try to control that capability. Before it ever needed to be used again, as human delegates prepared to speak, one truth settled heavily across the stars. Trust had been built on misunderstanding, and misunderstanding, once exposed, could never be restored the same way. The meeting did not feel like diplomacy. Human delegates entered the chamber calmly, without escorts or visible protection. Their posture was relaxed, almost casual, as if they were not standing before the combined authority of the galaxy. That calm unsettled everyone watching. The council did not waste time. A proposal was presented immediately. Carefully worded. Official, polite. It spoke of balance, oversight, and shared responsibility. It suggested that human emergency protocols should require galactic approval before activation. No one used the word restriction. Humans understood it anyway. The chamber waited for resistance. It did not come. The human delegate read the proposal. Slowly, line by line, as if studying something fragile. When they finished, they looked up, not angry, not defensive, just curious. May we ask one question? The delegate said. Permission was granted. If this law had existed during the last incident, the human asked calmly, how many worlds would still be alive today? No one answered. The silence stretched longer than comfort allowed. A counselor finally spoke. That situation was exceptional. The human nodded. So are we. That response rippled through the chamber. The delegate continued, voice steady. We understand fear. We share it. That is why our protocols exist. Not to rule the galaxy, but to prevent collapse when systems fail. Another council member interrupted sharply. Or to decide who lives and who doesn't. The human did not deny it. Yes, they said simply. Sometimes, those are the same choice. The chamber erupted. Accusations flew. Threats were implied without being spoken. The word domination surfaced again and again. Some demanded guarantees. Others demanded disarmament. Humans listened. They did not argue facts. They spoke of history. They spoke of history. They spoke of times on their own world when laws failed, when oversight slowed action until disaster became inevitable. They spoke of moments when permission cost millions of lives. We built our protocols, the human said, for the moment when asking would take too long. That truth landed hard. A coalition representative finally voiced the fear beneath it all. What happens if we say no? The human delegate paused, not for drama, for honesty. Then we will respect your law, they said. Until respecting it becomes extinction. No one doubted them. That was not a threat. It was a boundary, the council realized. Something too late. They were not negotiating power. They were negotiating trust. And trust could not be enforced. The proposal fractured under debate. Some species withdrew support immediately, unwilling to be responsible for the consequences of delay. Others pushed harder, terrified of leaving humans unbound. The vote stalled in the chaos. Reports arrived from the outer systems. Another anomaly. Smaller than before, unstable. Escalating fast. The chamber froze. All eyes turned to the humans. No one asked them to act. No one stopped them either. Human ships were already moving, not toward the threat, toward the affected populations. Relief vessels deployed. Evacuation corridors opened. Stabilization teams formed. No emergency protocol was activated yet. The galaxy watched closely. The threat worsened. Time shrank. Council approval would take hours. The human delegate remained seated. Hands folded, eyes on the data. Someone whispered the question everyone feared. Are they waiting for permission or for proof? The anomaly crossed a critical threshold. Human systems shifted. Not fully, just enough. The galaxy realized the truth in a single, terrifying moment. Humans were not waiting for approval. They were waiting to see if the galaxy would choose survival over control. The line had been drawn. Not by humans, by everyone else. And whatever happened next would decide not just policy, but the future balance of power in the stars. The galaxy made its choice too late. By the time council channels finished debating language and authority, the anomaly in the outer systems crossed the threshold that marked irreversible collapse. Sensors screamed warnings, no one needed translated. Entire systems were about to fail. Human ships were already in motion. They did not wait for approval. They did not announce activation. They did not justify the decision. Human fleets moved with quiet precision, forming patterns the galaxy now recognized with dread. The emergency protocol activated. This time, no one mistook it for defense. Space around the anomaly stabilized unnaturally, as if reality itself had been forced to obey new rules. Energy flows flattened. Destructive feedback loops unraveled. What should have been catastrophic slowed, then stopped. The galaxy watched billions of lives get pulled back from extinction. Gan. When the anomaly collapsed safely, leaving space intact and populations alive, the council chamber remained silent. No cheers followed. No relief celebrations. Just understanding. Humans returned to relief operations immediately, as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. Medical teams deployed. Infrastructure repairs began. Refugees were escorted home. They did not address the council. They did not apologize. Deny explained? The explanation was unnecessary. The emergency session reconvened hours later. But the tone had changed completely. The proposal to restrict human protocols was withdrawn without a vote. No one defended it anymore. One counselor finally spoke the truth, everyone now shared. We were trying to control the wrong thing. Humans attended the session quietly. A representative was invited this time, respectfully to speak. The humans stood and said very little. We do not seek authority, they said. We seek time. Time for systems to work. Time for lives to be saved. When time runs out, we act. Someone asked the final question. What happens if the galaxy ever tries to stop you? The human answered honestly. Then we will stop asking. That was not a threat, it was a statement of fact. The galaxy learned its lesson in that moment. Humans were peaceful because they chose to be. Their restraint was deliberate. Their patience was earned. And their emergency protocols were not tools of domination, but promises they had made to themselves. Long before meeting anyone else, never again let extinction win because of hesitation. Never again let permission cost survival. New laws were written quietly. Not to bind humans, but to remove obstacles when they acted. Emergency corridors. Automatic authority during extinction-level events. Trust encoded into policy. The galaxy adapted. Humans returned to diplomacy, to aid to peace. But now, every species understood what that peace truly meant. It was not weakness, it was control. And control, when combined with restraint, was the most dangerous force in the universe. From that day forward, no council ever tested human patience again. No empire fired on human relief ships. No alliance mistook calm for helplessness. Because everyone remembered what happened when the universe itself became the enemy, and humans calmly decided to intervene.